Not a problem.
Awesome.
And good morning, everyone. We are live.
Oh, sweet. All right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
jumped
we're
right
on.
into
Yeah.
it this morning.
Okay. No warm
Jumped
up or
right into
nothing. Not that we need it. Well, welcome guys to a very special episode. Special in the fact that we have Thomas Harenstam. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that properly. Uh, on the
Yeah.
show, but also that we are way outside of our normal time. But that's okay. We got to catch the early birds. But yeah, welcome guys back to the update log. We're having a special episode this morning with co-founder and lead designer on a number of games for FreeLeague Press, Thomas Harenstam. Joining me today are Matt and Greg, as always, and I'm Rob, your host. But without further ado, Thomas, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've worked on a number of games, since FreeLeague Press was founded, and you are the co-founder. So give us a bit about you.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to be on the show. Yeah, I'm one of the four co-founders of Free League. So we started Free League 2011, so it's going on. Well, it's 12 years now, and we started out doing some freelancing, just small stuff. Before we founded Free League as a company, it was just we met in through a forum for another game that we all played and enjoyed. So we were fans and freelancers who just did some stuff. And this was mostly for games that were only published in Swedish back then. So that kind of snowballed into us starting to do more things. And then the company that published the games that we were writing for announced they were going out of business. And by then I had been hired or to work on the rules for a new game that they were supposed to be publishing. So then at that point, they asked me and some of the other people who turned into Free League whether we wanted to kind of inherit that project and continue it and complete it. Mm-hmm. And we thought about that for a while, and eventually we decided to go for it. But that meant we would have to start a company to get some kind of framework for actually publishing a book and printing and selling a book. So that's kind of how Free League started. So that was the first game that we released in 2012. So that's kind of how things got started, and it basically snowballed from there.
As things do.
Yeah,
that's a pretty awesome beginning. Wow.
Yeah, I've noticed that's typically the case with a lot of game developers, especially going back 10, 20, 30 years. Usually they kind of fall into it by accident. It's only now in the last, I'd say 5 years, where 5 to 6 years, where gaming and becoming a developer or designer or working in the industry as a whole has been seen as an actual job. I mean, and I say that because I remember the time when I was, growing up. I'm only, 35, not super old. But I remember growing up, my mom would be like, "Stop playing those games. You're wasting your damn time." And now I can be like, "Mom, it wasn't a waste of time."
Yeah, I mean, it used to be back then, and that is when around the time when we started out, it was a kind of a known truth in at least in the Swedish RPG community that you cannot make a living out of making RPGs. That's just not possible anymore. It was possible back in the 80s in the first kind of boom, but then that kind of died out. That company that was kind of the leading company here in the 80s it went out of business in the 90s, and after that it was kind of a slower period. And back then there was kind of the common truth is that it's not possible. You can do it as a hobby for fun. You cannot make a living out of it. And that's also what we thought for at least first 5 years or something. So we worked mostly, we had other jobs other day jobs for the first 5-6 years, and just did Free League stuff on weekends and nights. But it kind of, things changed and it grew. And one by one, we started kind of going, over into turning working full-time or almost full-time, like piece by piece, more and more time went to Free League, and eventually, well, basically all of the original founders except one of us, one of those four, he still has an actual job as a doctor. I don't know. But
that's kind of hard to give up at that point.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So but the other three of us that kind of transitioned over to well, pretty much full-time Free League.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mutant Year Zero was your first game, right? Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean,
like the first official product out of FreeLeague Press.
Yes, that was the first game we published in English.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that game was actually the third game we did as Free League, but the first two games were only published here and only in Swedish. We never translated them. But Mutant Year Zero is actually a new version, a new edition of one of the classic Swedish RPGs called Just Mutant, and that was one of the games that I started playing way back in the 80s. That was like, yeah. And there have been a couple of different editions throughout the years. And then we, after having published those first two games, we kind of pitched the owner of the license and the kind of Mutant IP whether we could do a new version of that game. And then they kind of gave us, they let us have a go at it. And that became Mutant Year Zero. And that was also first published only in Swedish. But then pretty soon after that had happened, this was 2014, we were thinking about maybe trying our luck and publishing it in English. So I kind of translated it at record speed. And we also started talking to, at that time, Modiphius, another publisher. We started talking to them because they were at that time doing Mutant Chronicles, which is basically, or has the same origin as Mutant. The Mutant in Mutant Chronicles comes from the original Mutant franchise. They kind of split up in the 90s into two separate games. So we started talking to them, started talking to Modiphius whether they could help us with distribution and stuff that we had no idea of how to do, internationally at that time. And that's kind of how that started. So we, in the beginning, they kind of handled all of that for us. So that was the first game, the Mutant Year Zero, first game in English. It was released in December of 2014. But then with Modiphius kind of as a co-publisher, even though we did all the game design and all of that stuff, but they helped us distribute.
Yeah, no, I mean, that kind of reminds me of the TSR and Wizards, well, not TSR, WotC and Pathfinder. Kind of the situation with Wizards of the Coast and Paizo, where when D&D 3rd edition was coming into 3.5, there was kind of a split where when going into 4th edition, folks were like, let's go this way. And Paizo took over some of the IP from WotC and created Pathfinder. Similar system, some noticeable changes, but sounds similar to that situation.
A little bit, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Matt, Greg, you guys have any questions for Tomas? I don't want to be the one doing all the talking here.
Well, that was quite all right. I mean, I was just listening and learning personally, but no, the curiosity for me, Thomas, I mean, I got the opportunity to meet you in person at Gen Con. And I know you guys do a lot of these events around, I'm assuming around the world, really, but US-based events. Where, outside of Gen Con, I mean, where are some of the big locations that you do in the US?
Yeah, I mean, we do a bunch of conventions in the US, but most of them are managed by our local team. That's headed by Doug Shute. He's a great guy. He goes to pretty much, I don't know how he can manage all of those conventions because he goes to a lot. It's like, it feels like it's almost every weekend, maybe not right, but he does a lot of them, which is fantastic because as we are overseas, it's kind of hard for us to go over ourselves all the way on every convention. So basically the ones that some of us from the team over here go to, I mean, Gen Con, yes, I tend to go to the Gamma Expo. That is, more of a sort of not a consumer event, but more of a business, industry event. So those two I generally go to. I've been to PAX Unplugged as well, and some others, but and I think a colleague of mine went to Game Hall Con now, which was not that long ago. So generally, it's Gen Con and Gamma are the kind of the ones that we always go to from here. But then Doug covers like all of the others, and so he has a great team locally in the US.
Awesome. I know we Luke Stratton, his brother, does some work with you guys. Yeah.
He's been in doing a lot of the events for us as well. So he and Doug have been around, doing lots of events. Yeah.
So just another quick question here. I don't want to monopolize your time, but well, there are so many genre-based games that you've worked on with Free League, and I mean, do you have a personal favorite?
Of the games that we publish?
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to say. It's kind of hard to pick. It's like picking your favorite child or something. It's not right. It's not right. But I am very. I mean, if you're speaking of genre, I mean, in kind of licensed things, I've been lately working a lot with the Blade Runner RPG, and that's kind of a personal favorite of mine. But that's because it's a film that meant a lot to me in growing up and stuff like that. So that's why that game has a special place for me. But I think every game, we only do games that we are passionate about. So I think we all every title that we put out has a champion in the team, and that's the way it should be.
I feel you on that one for sure. And Blade Runner is, I mean, that is one of my personal favorites too. It's definitely something that we're going to dive into at some point with the RPG streams that we do. We chose to start with Alien out of the Free League lineup, and I kind of personally, I grew up on Alien as my beginning horror film type of thing, and Sigourney Weaver, I mean, anyway.
I love Alien as well. It's a very hard choice. Like I said, it's kind of, which is your favorite. It's almost impossible. So yeah, Alien is certainly a big favorite of mine as well.
But yeah, we're gonna roll into the Blade Runner game at some point here. It's as we get the scheduling piece to do that, we're gonna run something good there. Our focus right now has been in that realm, as we've been doing a lot with Artel Sorian and Cyberpunk. And I think we tend to kind of base the scenarios that we create for Cyberpunk a little bit more leaning towards the Blade Runner universe, but that's just me.
I mean, Blade Runner is. I've noticed that a Blade Runner has been a catalyst for quite a few creators lately. I know it was a big catalyst for Cyberpunk in general, as per Mike Pondsmith said. Yeah, I saw the movie and I was like, wait, let's make a game out of that. And you said it's one of your favorites as well. And for those in the audience who have not seen Blade Runner, I highly recommend. And anybody who watched the VOD, go watch the movie. It's and 2049 was actually also pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that one as well. I mean, of course, the original is a timeless classic, but I really enjoyed 2049 also. I think it's really good. I mean, of course, there are similarities between the genre of Cyberpunk and Blade Runner, but we kind of tend to think it's not quite the same. Blade Runner we call it like future noir or something like that. It has some similarities with Cyberpunk and some differences. I mean, and notably in terms of game structure, the Blade Runner RPG is very much an investigative game. Yes. It's about solving a case, and that might not be the case with Cyberpunk, which you might do different things. So in terms of how the game is structured and what you actually do in the game, there are some differences. But of course, in general, there are also, I mean, setting-wise, some certain similarities, of course.
Yeah.
And we with the recent release of Adasteria from Mutant, And I know you kind of talked a little bit about that, but with the recent release of that, um, and that's also a focal point for us, and that is a universe that we're pretty new to that. Um, but just from the first look at it, it's like, wow, this has all of the elements of the post-apocalyptic piece to it, and a lot of the things that we as role players out here in the world like to try to throw into those type of games, and so I tell you what, I really thought that was awesome looking through that game and getting an opportunity to kind of dive into, hey, this carries like all the elements of the apocalyptic piece, even beyond some of the more, some of the titles that are out now, like your Fallouts and stuff like that. You look at this game, it's like, this has a lot of the things that I really want to drive into an experience as a, not just as a GM but as a player. What is, and I know this is a long-term game. You started off kind of playing this. What is your favorite aspect of the Mutant universe?
Well, it's definitely been a game that has been with me since an early age. So it definitely has a special place on that alone. But I do think I mean, I always enjoyed a good post-apocalyptic game because it gives you that idea of a world that's kind of reset, and it's kind of open, and that's what we kind of try to do in Mutant Year Zero. It's not just about the world falling apart; it's also about rebuilding something new, and I think that has to be a part of to me at least, if post-apocalyptic setting. For it to be interesting, can't just be too bleak and just it can't only be about survival. Is going to be a core key part of it. It can't only be about that. It also has to have some kind of larger aspiration or hope or something that it kind of aspires to, and that was always the core for Mutant Year Zero from the very start. So that was what we wanted to do, and that game is now. I mean, like you said, it's the first game we did in English. It's coming up on next year is going to have a 10-year anniversary. So, and this latest release at Astra is it's kind of an interesting thing because it's we mentioned this in the core book that was released in 2014 that we will be doing the Ad Astra expansion. It took longer than planned. We did a lot of other things for Mutant Year Zero in the meantime. But so this is kind of finally getting the Ad Astra module out for Mutant Year Zero is great for, and I think it has this, it's of course it's bringing Mutant Year Zero into space, which is kind of an interesting twist to the whole thing. But it's also great just to kind of complete it, this expansion that we have been working on for a number of years now. So it's just nice to see that. And then that also, it's not the end of the line for Mutant Year Zero game for sure, but it is kind of a big milestone. So now we're kind of looking toward the future for Mutant Year Zero. What's next? And it's we have some big ideas. A bit too soon to reveal too much yet, but there are definitely things coming. And one thing that I can say about Mutant Year Zero already is that we're doing a miniatures game called Zone Wars, which is is coming out early next year, and it's been we did a Kickstarter for it, and it's kind of it's out there. But that's another way to approach Mutant Year Zero, is to play this miniatures game, which is a lot of fun and chaotic.
The miniatures game is it similar to like Warhammer Tabletop?
Yeah, it is in a sense, yes, but it is what we tried to do with this one is to have it much more complete. You get the full game in a box. So you get, there's two boxes really. There's like a core game, and with that you can play 2 players, and with the expansion you can play up to 4 players in the same game. So that's also a bit different, that it's a multiplayer. You can play like 4 people battling it out. And also in the box, in those sets, you get like the miniatures, you get you have like cardboard terrain you can put together, you had a battle mat, and you have everything you need to play the game. So it's not really a collector, like it's not about collecting miniatures so much as it's more focused on actually playing the game and getting everything you need in a single set.
In a single purchase. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's actually really good. And don't get me wrong, I love Warhammer Tabletop.
Sure. Yeah.
I've never played myself. I've had friends. We actually have a close friend of ours who huge into that. And I've had other friends and have watched. Unfortunately, the plastic crack is way too expensive for me.
Yeah, it's a costly.
Yeah, that's you gotta. It's expensive, especially with
Yeah.
just.
And that's a whole thing. I mean, that whole collector, painting, collecting miniatures, that's a whole hobby in its own. And that's very cool. But we are more focused for Zone Wars, it's more focused on being close to the role-playing game. So it's more of an immediate gaming experience, not like a collector thing.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, and being able to kind of get the gameplay experience without having to go through that, all that. I guess in the eyes of some, the trouble of doing all the collecting, it's a much lower bar to entry.
Yeah. That's the idea.
And again, this might be too soon to answer this particular question, but being that there's now a miniatures game, kind of like a tactile piece to the Mutant Year Zero, is that in some way going to link back to the actual TTRPG aspect of the game?
Yeah, there are some
potential for that.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. You don't need miniatures to play the RPG, but you can use them if you like. And it also we also kind of connect the story, because the overall Mutant Year Zero kind of franchise and the expansions that we've done, they kind of build the story of. I mean, it's called Mutant Year Zero because it's like a prequel, really, to the older Mutant games. That is kind of how this started. So it's all about these different types of beings, re-entering the world and rebuilding the world. And that's kind of that story, that overarching story, continues in the Zone Wars game as well. So the story beats kind of continue over into the miniatures game. There was also rules for converting characters between the two. The rules are fairly similar. The Zone Wars mechanics are a bit simpler and faster because it's a miniatures game and not an RPG, but the core mechanic is very similar. So you can easily kind of play, bring your RPG characters into the war game, or the other way around. You can kind of take, stories and characters from Zone Wars into the RPG.
Gotcha. Okay. So I mean, I actually might have to check that out now. I like that kind of mechanical interaction between two seemingly different things.
Yeah.
Well, miniatures-based games. They're huge. I mean, and there's a lot of games that are going that direction right now, into adding that as part of their lineup, being able to have the miniature-based games, the TTRPG aspect to it. For FreeLeague, I just want to change up direction just a little bit, Thomas. How about you specifically when it comes to because I mean, I got an opportunity to spend some time with your folks at Gen Con this year, and they, your people love you, man. They think that you are like the genius of all geniuses when it comes to game creation. and I'm looking at the games and it's wow. The systems that you've created based on genres that I love really do bring they bring the feel of the genre to the tabletop, in my opinion. Where did that come from? How do you what's your personal take on this? How did you approach it to create that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is fantastic to get that kind of feedback from, mostly on going to events, Gen Con or whatever, and there's a lot of, love for, our games, and that just to experience that is amazing. So yeah, we were that's just nothing we ever you will. We just make the games that we enjoy and would like to play ourselves. So it's all driven by kind of personal passions. And yeah, I mean, I think I don't know exactly why or how, but it's definitely been part of, I think, not only me, but most of us in the core team. We have been, I started playing games, role RPGs, when I was, I think, 11, and I started writing them when I was 12, and I kind of been doing it ever since. It's always been kind of what I enjoy doing. So it's just a lot of fun to actually have, getting the feedback from others that they're kind of enjoying the games as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that because like earlier you mentioned like the the games that you work on, like you choose the projects that you are the most passionate about, and I
Yeah.
think that really shines through to the quality of the games because when because I think there's a lot of times when you play a game, you can kind of tell whether or not the people who made it enjoyed making it because sometimes that passion, that just fun, just really comes through. And
Yeah, you'll see it in the mechanics for sure.
yeah, and so that's like kind of what it sounds like because you talk about how like you guys are so passionate about the projects you choose, and I think that's a pretty like large factor in like why you get such a reaction out of like fans because they can tell that like
Yeah, I think so. I
loves
mean, I think
the
that's generally the case that, if there is true passion for something, it doesn't, whatever it is, games or other things, I think it kind of shines through. Hopefully in this case as well, because that's I can't even imagine. I don't think I could do a good job working on a game that I didn't feel strongly about personally and really look forward to playing. And it's just part of how we've always approached things.
Good. I have a question. Yeah, again, kind of piggybacking off of that sentiment, working on stuff that you're passionate about. Is there something that you or you specifically, or just the team in general, have been really wanting to work on, just haven't gotten the chance to yet? Like a hopeful project that you kind of see on the horizon.
There are. I mean, I think mostly now we have, as a general thing, we have done a lot of. We have a lot of game lines, so
Mhm.
we have kind of discussed now that we need to be a bit careful about launching new RPGs, like new game lines, because we also need to support every game line that we launch. So it's
Yeah.
kind of so we feel we have to focus for a while now, for a bit, to kind of focus more on supporting the game lines that we have. I mean, I'm working on the Blade Runner line now for like doing more case files and expansions, which I'm really, looking forward to. We're also working on stuff on the Mutant Year Zero line, and also working on the Dragonbane, which are fantasy RPG that was released now just in August. So basically, our focus now is a lot on kind of supporting and expanding the existing game line. So we are being a bit careful with taking on something completely new. But of course, that said, there are some kind of dream projects, and in that sense, it's usually kind of licenses that would be very cool to work on, but nothing that's really happening right now, or it's just kind of things that have not been panned out, that don't seem to be possible for one reason or another. But there are a
Gotcha.
few of those, but nothing that is kind of on the horizon, as in they will likely happen. It's more like very, very loose ideas that if we could get the chance at some point to do them, we'd
We
probably
definitely like to work on them.
All right.
yeah, more like
That opens the door wide open for this question. I gotta ask this, because I mean all of the genres that are going in here, and there's one in particular that I'm gonna ask about. I'm waiting because there's a passion there that we'll get to that. How about this though? Have you ever looked at Firefly?
Yeah, I guess we have. I mean, Firefly certainly been. I mean, it's obviously on our radar, and it's kind of a touchstone or something that's kind of a lot of. I think for many it's one of those. It's not the biggest kind of TV show ever, but it's certainly made an impact, and it's certainly been part of our work that we've been doing. And I think the game we did, Coriolis, is definitely very much inspired by Firefly. It has other sources of inspiration as well, but there is definitely a Firefly element to Coriolis. I think that was definitely back then when we did Coriolis, a major inspiration. I don't think we have approached anyone to actually make a Firefly RPG. There was one before. I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe more, 15, maybe
so.
something like that. Yeah,
I think so.
I never actually got around to playing it, but I looked at it and it looked cool. So yeah, it's been done, but it's nothing we haven't actively sought out, at least not yet.
I think if I'm just spitballing the idea here, but I mean, I think if you guys did it, it would have a much better chance of taking off. But that's I don't mean to insult anybody, but that's I really do, because you've done so well with the genre-based games. I mean, like Alien, Blade Runner. I mean, this is wow,
Yeah, I mean, Firefly is very cool. So who knows? Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
maybe we'll
if
do
anybody could pull that off, yeah, you never know. I mean, Firefly is a very, very near and dear to my heart. Definitely taken before its time. But you did mention supporting the system that you already have. I know I actually got an email a couple of days ago about the new case file for Blade Runner, Fiery Angels. That I'm excited for that, even though I haven't played the game yet. But I love the Blade Runner franchise. Greg, we're gonna have to play Blade Runner at some point. Just so you know.
I am. That's on the schedule, man. We definitely will be doing that.
Just letting you know.
It's kind of it's a game. Blade Runner, the case file format, it makes it pretty. I mean, it's easy to get into. I mean, if you have that kind of, it comes with a lot of stuff like handouts and pre-generated characters and stuff. So it's designed to be fairly quick to get into. So and it can be played. I mean, there is a case file in the starter set which it can be played in like 3 sessions, and the Fiery Angels is the same. You can expand it to a longer campaign if you want, but it's kind of designed to be, if you play it, as it's written, it's designed for maybe 2 or 3, well, 3 sessions most likely.
Gotcha.
Kind of, it does have kind of a, not, I hate to say one-shot feel to it, but it does kind of have that feel to it, where
a little bit, yeah. I mean, the Alien cinematic scenarios are also about the same format. They are even more one-shot, one-shot like, because they in Alien, being Alien, you don't expect all the characters to survive. So basically, every new cinematic scenario comes with new pre-generated characters. So you're not in kind of assumed to be playing the same character again, because most likely, at least if you're lucky, someone will survive, but probably not all. So it's kind of designed around that kind of premise, which is essentially fun. Actually, Blade Runner, the case files are a bit different. They are definitely one shot in that they can be played as one shots in the sense that each case file is a standalone thing. So you can definitely play it as a one shot and be done. But as opposed to Alien, the case files for Blade Runner are actually designed so you can play several with the same characters over time. So Fiery Angels is a standalone thing, but it also continues some story arcs from the first case file, which is called Electric Dreams, which is included in the starter set. And the next one will also pick up that thread. So actually the case files, they together kind of form a longer campaign, which would be 4 or 5 parts probably. But they'll also work as standalones.
Gotcha. So kind of like an episodic system where each episode or case file in this case can be its own self-contained story, but they kind of have an overarching main story. Okay, that's exactly. I've come to really appreciate systems with that in mind, because it lends itself better to, in our case, on our RPG stream, where sometimes people might drop in or drop out, or at physical tables, some people might show up, some people might not. And I think episodic self-contained stories is definitely a feature that should be explored more, and probably implemented more in more games. My next question to you, for me personally, um, what was the most difficult project to work on? Because you again, you guys have a large lineup of different games, and I've seen some heavy hitters in there. You got the One Ring, you have um, you know freaking Blade Runner, Alien. You have, and then obviously Mutant Year Zero. Um,
Yeah.
which one kind of was one of the more difficult ones?
It's hard to say. I think you mentioned the One Ring there, and that was probably one of the easier ones. Not because it's easy in
Really?
itself, but because actually we normally design most of our games kind of in-house. But the One Ring is designed by Francesco Nepitello, who's an Italian game designer who did the first edition
Okay.
10 years ago. That was and released with a different publisher. So basically, that game came about through Francesco kind of looking for a publisher. And we met him at, I think, Essen in Germany, Essen Spiel, and kind of hit it off. And we had a lot of the same thoughts on game design. And well, after some discussions and so on, we ended up publishing the second edition of the One Ring. Of course, we did some work mostly on graphic design and all of that, and that side of things, of course. But Francesco did the heavy lifting design wise. So in that sense, it was an easy project because we didn't do all of the work internally.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but in terms of the difficult project, I think again, actually, Blade Runner was quite difficult because it has some unique challenges to it. I think Alien was in some senses easier because it's a more immediate. It's kind of easier to immediately get what it's about and how to play Alien. You kind of know what, and it's also Alien. The Alien films usually are about a group of people. And in an RPG, you have a group of people, so that kind of made it also a bit easier. Blade Runner was a bit different because in the films it's usually mainly one protagonist, which in RPGs you can play with one player, but most of the time you'll have a few. So we kind of had to work. How do you actually structure a game so that it feels like Blade Runner, but still can be played with a group of people? And also, Blade Runner has those, which is why I enjoy the films, is because they have they have depth, and they handle complex issues of all kinds, and moral issues, existential issues. How do you get that into an RPG? It's not easy. So that was kind of also a challenge, which was a fun challenge, but definitely a challenge that took work and a lot of testing and a lot of discussions on how to best kind of get that into the game, because you kind of had to for it to feel like Blade Runner.
Yeah, to capture that feeling of Blade Runner, but from your description and from my own reading of the system and looking into it, it's very much a departure from what most folks would see as your typical TTRPG. Again, for those reasons of it's more of psychological and emotional aspect to the game, to the world, where it's not, you go fight the dragon, you win, you get a bunch of loot, and you go home. Here it is. There's layers to it.
It's definitely not D&D.
No.
Yeah. I mean, raiding dungeons and killing monsters. I enjoy that too. It's not like one or the others. It's just different flavors, and I think it kind of shows the breadth of what TTRPGs can be.
Yeah, and I'm glad, and I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad other folks are doing this. They're expanding outside of that kind of box that most folks view TTRPGs in, because I mean, we can all say it. D&D is at the top of the hill, and I think for most individuals who are coming into this particular genre of gaming, most of them stop at D&D, and they miss they miss the woods. They miss the rest of the nuance in this particular genre of gaming. And it's good that folks like you and other studios are putting out these nuanced games and showing players, both veteran and newcomers alike, hey, look, there's more than just slaying the dragon and getting your loot. Like you can have a different experience.
Don't pick
Matt,
on the
you look
loot,
like
man.
you wanted to.
Don't pick on the loot.
Look, man.
We all love the
We're all loot goblins.
and the
It's
dragon.
okay.
But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it is nice to see other things out there besides slaying dragons.
You have both.
Doesn't have to be dragons, but don't touch the loot. Because
Everyone does love loot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually I have a bit of a question because Mutant Year Zero based off the Mutant game from, you said, what, the 80s?
Yeah.
And so you based Year Zero off of that. So when you were kind of designing that, like, what kind of things did you want to keep? What kind of things did you want to change? Like, how did that go? Like, and how much does it resemble the original?
Yeah, it's that was I mean, because the original Muted game was a big thing over here, but completely unknown elsewhere. So, and when we designed it, we had loose ideas on doing it kind of internationally, but it was basically originally a new edition of this Swedish RPG. And back then, we kind of wanted to change things up. The original Mutant game was much more, I mean, the world in that game was much more kind of civilized. It was like almost like a 18th, 19th century type world, but set after the apocalypse. It had like cities and nations, and that was all good. That was fine, but we felt we wanted to do something that was a bit more, rough, a bit more, really starting at the very start of, after the apocalypse, trying to rebuild this world. So we kind of turned the game into a prequel of the original game, and that's why it's called Year Zero. It's like the beginning of how this world came to be, and it's also what we did, because in the original game you have the different character classes. You have the human mutants, you have the animal mutants, you have the robots, and you have your normal humans. And basically we did one book, or actually in the Swedish edition, one boxed set for each character class. And so we made like 4 games, one for each character class. That was kind of a way to really dive into each class and tell their backstory. So each of those books has a campaign included that kind of tells the story of where did the animal mutant come from? Where did the robots, how did they come to this world? And that was interesting, and that was kind of what we wanted to do. But it turned out to be a bit more, a bit complicated when we did it in English, because of course the international audience didn't have the references. So for them, this was completely new and a new game. So that meant it was a bit of a difficulty, a difficult time to kind of explain, why did we do it this way, and what was kind of the context. So that is one thing that kind of, I think that approach we had back then kind of worked. I think it was designed to fit kind of the Swedish context rather than the international one. So I think if we do another new edition of Mutant Year Zero, I think we'd probably not do it the same way, but rather have like one core game instead of 4. It just keeps things a bit
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's then that is definitely, as I'm kind of veer off just a little bit here, but we kind of jumped into this. I mean, we've been working in the content creation space in a video game capacity for the last few years, and really over the last year we decided to start jumping into TTRPGs and more of the written book based piece to it. What brought us to here, but that's the challenge a lot of the time. Obviously you have the story piece and art and all of those things to figure out, but then it really comes down to, okay, how do you present this product to the people in a way that is that it's going to be absorbed well, that people are going to it's actually going to get out there, the word of mouth, it's going to spread, people are going to become aware of the product and actually give it a chance. Yeah, I'm just going to ask you an off the wall question based on that. What do you think the best approach is?
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know like the perfect answer, but I think one thing that we have always done, and I think has been, key for at least what we've been able to do, is that we have always enjoyed game design, but also from the very beginning we had quite a lot of focus on art and graphic design as well. So I do think, at least for us, I think to get the full experience of a TTRPG, we kind of have to have the game design needs to be there, but also the art and graphic design. It kind of has to have the whole package, and I think that is one way. I'm not saying others don't do this, but I think definitely for FreeLeague that's always been a key thing, and it's also, I think, because one of the 4 founders is a graphic designer by trade. That's his job, and was his job before he started doing RPGs. I think that kind of was important early on to kind of get, if you come from nowhere like we did, it helps if your games look good. To be honest, it does help.
Yeah.
It is, as much as there's that saying of "Don't judge a book by its cover."
Exactly.
A lot of books are judged by their cover, and so you got to make sure.
If you want someone to read your game and try it out, you kind of have to have something
to grab them.
kind of grab them initially. Yeah. Otherwise, it's hard, to get through to break through because there's so much out there to kind of get noticed in the first place, so that they can start reading the gaming and enjoy the game design. You kind of have to have something there to get their interest. So that, I think that's part of it. That's one part of it.
So you meant. Go ahead, Greg.
No, I go for it.
You mentioned early on in the stream that you obviously started with Mutant, but your journey into kind of the game design space started a year after you started playing Mutant, when you started writing out your own campaigns and what have you. What part of the design process do you enjoy the most, and then what part do you enjoy the least?
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I hate the story part. and not that I'm like I don't like the story. I just don't think I'm a good storyteller. I've been told otherwise, but that's always the hardest part for me. But
maybe we should use reverse psychology on him. Start telling him that he sucks, and he'll try harder to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm a bit similar to that. I for some reason, I don't know why, but from the very early days, I enjoyed writing rules and mechanics. I'm not sure why. It's just always been that way. That was kind of the appeal in role playing for me from the beginning, is kind of the combination of storytelling and math or something. That it's kind of that thing that you can kind of create the story at the table using mechanics that kind of enhance the story and support the story and take the story in unexpected directions, but also in a way that doesn't kind of get in the way, and so that supports the story instead of gets in the way. And that whole thing has always fascinated me. So that's kind of what I enjoy the most thinking about. So for me, that's usually what I've been focusing on as well in our games. So writing now the case files for Blade Runner is actually a challenge for me, but a fun one, because it's not usually what I do. So writing adventures is not usually what I've been doing a lot of. It's not what I think I'm best at. So that's definitely a big challenge, but definitely a very interesting one. So I enjoy it, but it is hard. It's not. It doesn't come easy. So that's definitely the way it's for me anyway.
No, I 100% agree with you, and can relate. I am the exact same way. I would rather work on rules and mechanics and their interaction and kind of build that foundation for the story to kind of lay on top of than actually write the story.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we have another colleague here who does the Symbaroum game, that kind of, and he loves writing like deep setting with lots and lots of detail, which is, Symbaroum is a game like that. which is amazing. I mean, it's amazing to see. But there, we're very different in that sense, which is good that we have different people with your different things. Because I'm not. For me personally, I find it more interesting to write something set in the Blade Runner universe than writing my own cyberpunk-like world. To me, it's more interesting to work with Blade Runner than write my own setting. But so that's just another thing that where we're a bit different. Whereas Matthias, he enjoys crafting his own world, with every detail and building that up, which is really cool. It's just not what I'm great at.
Yeah, I we're on the same team, man.
Okay.
give me a world that's already set and let me work with the
Yeah.
mechanics. I'm good to go.
Yeah, me too.
But Greg, you had a question.
Well, no, I wanted to kind of tread down the path there that we're on right now, because Free League does a lot of work with other creators, and we've kind of had a chance to experience this kind of vicariously through like Luke Stratton and Pirate Borg. You have the whole Mork Borg piece that's out there. There's a recent expansion in the Vesson realm that came. Go ahead. Yeah, you remember it?
Lost Mountain Saga, I believe.
Lost Mountain Saga. There we go. Yep. I couldn't remember the name, but yeah. So, what do you as a publisher? What are you guys looking for that stuff, or what are you in particular looking for? I hear that a lot through the interviews that are done with these folks. That hey, yeah, we caught the eye of Thomas, and here we are. So
yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a bit different. I mean, first of all, even though we do a lot of the work in-house, basically the founders, and we're also the group of founders has actually been increased a little bit since we joined forces with the team who did Simbarum, which I mentioned. So we're actually they were 3 people and we were 4, and then we became 5 because we brought in Simon Stallenhag as one of the owners, and now we're 8. So, but beyond that kind of core team, we work with many really great freelance writers and artists and so on, because we're not, we can't do everything ourselves. So we do definitely work for, like you mentioned there, for Lost Mountain Saga, Eleanor, she did her podcast, and yeah, we had discussions about that, and then the idea came up to turn the story she did in her podcast for Vaesen into a book, an official module. So that's kind of how that went. In some other cases, we work with writers for Alien. We work with the external writers for lots of different titles, because we just we can't write everything ourselves, even though we are very active editors. So it's definitely a group effort. But so and that's kind of one thing. The Mork Borg, Pirate Borg stuff is a bit different in the sense that we have like a special program that we call the FreeLeague Workshop. That's a bit confusing because we also use that same name for our community content program on Drive-Thru-RPG, but it's not the same. So they should really not be called the same, but unfortunately they are. But the other FreeLeague Workshop is basically where we act as purely a publisher for externally designed games. And that those are fully designed 100% by the creators themselves. And that is, we have Mork Borg, we have, of course, now Cyborg, and now Pirate Borg by another team. And then there is also Death in Space and Into the Odd remastered. And so we have a few of those. And those games are completely and fully designed, not only writing, but also the art, graphic design. They basically need to be complete finished games. And all that we do is that we help print them, ship them, distribute them, and help those creators get them out there. And that has been working really well. I mean, Mork Borg has become a phenomenon, which is fantastic. So that's been a great collaboration. So those games, if someone comes up to us with something that is fits the style and is a complete game that has everything together, then that might be something for FreeLeague Workshop. So we do look at we do get applications of people asking about that. even though we don't do a lot. I mean, we have a kind of, we don't want to take on too much, because even though it's externally designed and created, we still have to know what we're publishing, obviously. So it does have a bandwidth issue with it. But that's one thing. But then, as for writers and artists and who work on like more of our other kind of our own titles, it can happen through many different ways. Like I mentioned, Eleanor did the podcast and caught our eye, I guess, and others we have been working with for a long time. Others are new. We're always looking for great talent, writers, artists. But so it's yeah. I mean, it's then you have to find the ones that kind of work. Not only that they're great in themselves, but also that the kind of their style needs to work with the way we do games and things like that. So it's a bit of a process, but we do look for talent basically all the time.
It's absolutely awesome that you as FreeLeague do those things, and that you guys are so engaged with looking at the community and being supportive of artists that are out there. We actually we know and work with some of the not directly inside that network as far as being published through FreeLeague, but some of the supporting cast that's outside of that, people who they generate art for things like Morkborg, like Cyborg, like and a lot of their livelihood is based off of comes right directly from what you guys are doing and supporting those community members, those people that are part of your network.
That's one of the cool things that that have happened with Morkborg and those games, and Piratborg is an example of that. Is that they have this third-party program for creators to create like Morkborg compatible stuff. And we were actually inspired by that. We have something similar now for Dragonbane, where you can basically there is a simple license for just like for Morkborg as well. Basically, you can, but anyone who wants to can publish something that is explicitly for Dragonbane, which is or Morkborg. So that's also really cool to see. A lot of creators have kind of started doing this stuff and are creating their own things that we have no control over. But that's also the cool thing about it, is to see these things pop up all over. New. I mean, there's so much for Morkborg already, and starting to be quite a bit for Dragonbane as well.
So here's a personal question for you. How you want to answer this or don't answer this is completely fine. But how much of this do you think was inspired by the OGL issues from earlier this year?
Yeah, I mean that it didn't really start it for us, because we had already the idea of having the third-party license for Dragonbane, and also we have another license for the Year Zero system, where you can take like the core system text and just use it to create your own game. We were already working on it. We actually had our own OGL for Year Zero, the Year Zero engine. I think we put that out there in 2019 or something. So it had already been there, but we didn't really push it much. We didn't really announce. We didn't promote it. It was just there, but we didn't do much with it. So what did happen when that whole OGL thing started last winter was that we felt that let's just get this done. Let's finish the Dragonbane license, and let's So I did a lot of work on the system reference document for the Year Zero engine to kind of update that, to include all of the different rules versions that we have in our games, and update the licenses. So we talked to a lawyer and got the the paperwork in order, and just kind of push it out there in the early spring. So definitely it did give us some energy to, okay, this seems to be happening. The OGL seems shaky. Lots of new things are happening in this kind of an OGL type space. Let's finish what we have started and get it out there. So that it did, speed us on a bit, but it didn't really start something new.
Yeah, it sounds like the ball was already kind of rolling in that direction.
Yeah, it was just, it just started rolling more quickly.
I think that kind of that's the sentiment for quite a few people since that OGL situation.
Well,
Definitely, I think
your
for us.
right. Well, in your home, everything from your homebrew style gamers out in the field, people who are really just, they're enthusiasts. They're maybe actively trying to create something. Um, the OGL piece shifted the interest just enough that they're looking for those opportunities now. I think. And so knowing that Free League has this awesome opportunity out there that people can go and look at and potentially utilize with Free League that's a big deal. It opens up a lot for the small private gamers and even the smaller studios that are still struggling to get content out, creating whether it's supplemental material for other games or their own game or whatever it is. Having those opportunities that are out there, people are actually actively looking for them now. I really think there was this sense up until earlier this year, in the broader community, there was this sense that, well, there's the OGL or nothing. They didn't know what was available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, unless you guys have some other questions you want to ask, because I'm like dying to get into my passionate project here.
Go ahead, man. I've been waiting to kind of see what this is.
Well, I want to talk about The Walking Dead. I mean, we're talking about the genres that are out there that are coming, and there may not be much that can be said at this point, but what can you tell us? What is happening with this?
Greg wants the information.
Yeah, this is it is it's a fun and scary time to get that because right now of course we ran the Kickstarter earlier this year, and it's now being shipped out to backers. So it's always a scary time when the books and the box sets kind of land with backers. It's starting to see those people posting online that showing pictures of their stuff. And we did share the PDF already with backers, so of course they know kind of what to expect. It's not but it's a different thing when you get the actual physical game in your hand. It kind of, for a lot of people, I think, and I'm one of them definitely, it's kind of only then when you get the physical book or in your hand, it really kind of hits home. Okay, this is what this game is really about. Mm-hmm. This is how it works. I know some people are great playing VTTs and stuff, and I think that's awesome. But at least I think still for quite a few TTRPG players, I think the physical item still means something. So it's interesting. It's going to be great to see how it plays out. But we had a lot of fun playtesting it. It's written by Nils Hintze, who's a freelance writer, but he based it on the Year Zero engine. So he kind of took, my system, if you want to call it that, and kind of went with it and did his own thing, which is very cool. He did it first for Tales from the Loop, and then he also wrote the most of the Vaesen core rules, and now this one, The Walking Dead, so he's kind of been one of our most prolific freelance writers, and I think he did an amazing job with The Walking Dead, specifically because the TV show and of course the comics they're based on, they're not really about killing zombies. They're about kind of the other people are like the main danger. The walkers are basically more of a background threat that is always there, but it's not really, the drama is not there. The drama is between other people, and I think Nils has done a great job at kind of pushing that to the forefront, and that's really what the game is all about. So it's a lot about the kind of interpersonal stuff, more than a purely like a survival type game. It has that too, but the interpersonal drama and relationships is kind of where the game really focuses on and what it does best, I think.
We have members of our live play group that are absolutely, one in particular who is absolutely dying to try that game. So it's probably very soon, as soon as we're able to do that, we'll be running something with The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah, and the starter set comes with a short kind of, we call it survival mode scenario, which is great for a kind of a one-shot thing. We ran it here, when playtesting it, and it just in a single evening, and that worked really well, for us anyway. Because otherwise, the way the game is structured is it's mostly about kind of a sandbox style campaign where you really build your haven, your settlement, you kind of move around and you create all of that kind of, it's very much an open world, sandboxy style, campaign style game. But we also have this thing we call survival mode, which is more of a one-shot version of playing the game.
That's interesting. Right? Go ahead.
No, I keep going. I'm excited for this now.
I was listening to that piece, and it was like bringing these visions of like Left 4 Dead, or there's a couple of video games out there that kind of fit into that piece, and it just made me think, yeah, okay, we took that, because video games are great, but they're kind of stale at the same time because everything's preset, and once you play through it once, it's like, well, okay, I'm done. But the opportunity to take that from that video game setting and then generate it into the realm of the imagination, where is like, I don't know, I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds very cool. So
yeah, hope you'll enjoy it. It is we had a lot of fun with it. For us, it's kind of if we enjoyed it, hopefully others will too, and that's kind of what we can do. And so yeah, hopefully when it lands with backers, they'll have fun with it.
Apparently, Moon Girl wants to build a garden in the Walking Dead universe. So yeah, I guess you can build a garden, Moon Girl. But yeah, once we get our hands on it, we will definitely, more than like, I'm sure Greg has plans to do a special one shot for it.
We have so many things that we need to do with FreeLeague now. It's like, it's kind of pick and choose what are the things, what's next,
We got quite the list of games
We do.
that we want to try out.
Yeah, from FreeLeague, from now we're doing stuff at Artal.
Well,
we need a schedule.
Yeah. Well, Artel Saurian was kind of where we started into this adventure, and we've developed a relationship with Mike and Cody and crew, and coming up for GaryCon 2024, so the 50th anniversary piece for D&D. Is FreeLeague gonna be represented at GaryCon?
I think so, yeah. But it will most likely be Doug Shute and his team, I think.
Gotcha.
I wish, because it's, like I mentioned there, it's we'd love to do more, to come over for more conventions, but it's just, just across, it's a bit of a trip, so we can't do too many. But we freely will be there, and Doug is amazing. He knows our games sometimes better than we do. So I mean, he's definitely, he represents FreeLeague extremely well, or across all of those conventions.
We're primarily going to be Mike Pondsmith is going to be there. We are going to have some Artel Saurian support, however, they're not actually yet planning to have a booth there. You never know, that might change. But we're primarily going to be running games for them, both in person, which is some product that we've created ourselves, using Cyberpunk and the Witcher system. It's module style, so it's really just telling a story and allowing the players to play through that game. And we're going to be doing some virtual games as well, but it is possible. We've been talking about trying to squeeze in something for FreeLeague as well. Would you have a preferred game that you would like to see demonstrated there?
Oh, I don't know. When is it exactly? I forget.
March 2024. Yeah.
Really, I think the most important thing is that it would be something that you feel would would enjoy and I think would be cool to run. So I think that's the most important thing. But obviously the newer stuff is always great. Like The Walking Dead would be great, Blade Runner would be great, Dragonbane, yeah. But it really whatever you feel like running, I think is the most important
they have
criteria.
They have 2 weekends this year that they're doing, because they're doing the Legends weekend, which is a weekend before GaryCon, which is actually the celebration, if you will, for the 50 years of D&D and kind of the life works of Gary Gygax. That's pretty much focused on older games, which I think Mutant would probably fit well into that piece, because it is a little older game.
Yeah.
But as far as GaryCon itself goes, I mean, that's pretty wide open as to whatever we want to do there. So
yeah, and of course we always support people who want to run FreeLeague games. So we're happy to help out in any way we can.
You guys have been great. I absolutely love FreeLeague games, and the support that you guys give is fantastic. So
I might have to toss a Blade Runner game on there.
See, that was the whole point of me bringing that up, is I got 2 guys here that I need to convince to run more games for the company.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to talk about this afterwards, because I really want to get it stuck into Blade Runner. I'm when it comes to games and like TTRPGs, I'm more of a. The irony is I don't think I'm a good storyteller, but I prefer story over mechanics in my games, which is just the most ironic thing. Like if the game has good mechanics but a crappy story, you'll have my interest for a little while.
Yeah.
But if it has a good story and decent mechanics, that'll carry me through to the end.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you need both, really, to make something that's going to last.
But if I had to pick, like if there was one that I really had to pick that should be done very well, it would be a story. Because you can get invested in a story. Unfortunately, despite my love of mechanics and rules and how they interact, you really can't get invested in a rule set, especially from a player's perspective. So yeah, I think we might be sitting down and having a discussion on what more games to run. Greg, I see what you're doing.
Well, I'm not doing anything.
Putting us on the spot while we're live.
I do now have your commitment there. I mean, it's like
that's fine.
Signed and sealed.
If I say something,
it's going on YouTube in like 30 hours, so there's no denying it.
That's okay. I mean, there's plenty of stuff. I mean, the new Fiery Angels is coming out, and there's the what's the first one? Electric
Dreams, and it's that's the one included in the starter set.
Yeah, Electric Dreams. I got options. Don't worry, I'm prepared.
Just the name of that, and if you're familiar with the Electric Dreams show that's out there, that's enough to like be enticing right there. Just very interested in seeing what that's all about. All right. So, is there anything that you would that you'd like to share, Thomas, as far as what you guys have coming up, or?
Oh, I don't know. Yes, there's a bunch of cool stuff. No, I mean, I think it's we covered a lot of things. We talked about Blade Runner, Walking Dead. Of course, there's more Alien stuff coming. We have something pretty cool coming up for Alien in the fairly near future. Of course, we have the Building Better Worlds book that is on pre-order and coming out in January. But also we have more stuff after that coming. And of course, the fantasy game Dragonbane that I mentioned is also something we're doing a lot of work on. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that we enjoy working on, and hopefully, it'll be great to see them out there. But yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground. So no, I can't think of anything more specifically.
Yeah, I have to say, for anybody who is watching, if you have not, go to freeleaguepress.com and create an account, because they are definitely, I get information from them all the time, and they're very good about keeping you up to date on what's new, what's coming up. Um, it's awesome. I love it. And they're very, the what you guys put out for information is, it's not, it doesn't feel spammy, and it's very information. It's good information. That's the easiest way I can put it.
Yeah, it's always a balance. We want to inform people, but of course don't want to feel spammy. So we kind of have to balance that, right? So that's good to hear.
Right. And I of course pass that on to these two gentlemen, so they get, every time I get an email, they get an email.
Right.
Keep them keep them updated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Just the sheer breadth of work that you guys are getting done, and the variety, I think, is for me among the draw for your games. There's something for everyone, and it's all nice in one place. But also the care and attention to detail that I've seen in the systems thus far. Reading the core rule book for Alien, looking into Blade Runner, like you guys, like you said earlier, you really looked to either IP in those cases, as those, using those as examples, and leaned into what made them Alien, what made them Blade Runner, as opposed to something cookie cutter. You're like, no, well, we're doing some Blade Runner, let's lean into the noir, the psychological, the emotional, and let's make that the backbone of this system and environment.
Yeah, that's definitely what we always try to do, and the challenge to get, even though we have like the Year Zero core system mechanically, we always change it quite a lot and tweak it to really support and enhance the kind of experience we want from playing that specific game. So yeah, they're quite different, even though Alien and Blade Runner can seem similar in a sense, but they're actually quite different.
Yeah. Matt, do you have anything else for Thomas?
One thing I was thinking, and this is just a question, because I could see like some similarities between, like, I guess the setting between, like, say Alien and The Walking Dead, how they're both this kind of like horror based game where like in the stories you can't really expect everyone to survive. So are there some aspects of those games that ended up similar, or did you end up taking very different routes in how you executed these concepts?
You mean like Alien and The Walking Dead? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah, there are some similarities, but also some notable differences. I think it was kind of interesting there is that I did most of the rules design for Alien. But then, as I mentioned, Nils Hintz, a freelance writer, did the main game design for The Walking Dead. So he took his own kind of approach to it. But so there are definitely similarities. They're all both based on the Year Zero engine, and also Nils used the same concept of the stress dice mechanic that we have in Alien. So that is definitely a similarity. It's kind of that idea of building tensions by adding those stress dice, and they will help you to a point, but then they will actually trigger some kind of negative effect, panic or whatever. So that sense, the kind of that way, there is similarity. But what he did for The Walking Dead that is different, I mean, it's of course if you compare like the walkers of The Walking Dead with the xenomorphs of Alien, they're very, very different. I mean, the walkers in The Walking Dead pretty much, they are everywhere, and a single walker is not really the problem. There is like the constant threat. So he devised this idea of having like a threat level, how many walkers are around you right now, and that's kind of a dial that you can turn up and down from like 0 to 5 or something, where 0 is, it looks like there are no walkers around, where 5, they're like in your face. So it's kind of more of and that kind of fluctuates, and that has specific mechanical effects that works really well, because that's kind of how walkers work in the show. In Alien, of course, the xenomorph is something very different. Basically, you don't see them at all very much. And when you actually meet a xenomorph, it is a very, very dangerous situation, and so those are handled very differently. Whereas one xenomorph is a deadly threat to the whole group. The walkers are much more of a constant threat that is always there, coming and going. So those are handled very differently in the mechanics to reflect that kind of feel you want from the game. So yeah, definitely some similarities, but some notable differences too.
Yeah, you encounter the xenomorph in the this is the end. This is the end music cues up in the background.
Yep, that's it. It just lights out, man. You're done. But yeah, so I guess unless anybody in the audience has any questions for Tomas, I believe we are drawing to a close.
We are. Speaking of drawing, I am going to test out our wonderful random drawer here and see.
Oh yes, that's right. We are doing
if we can
a giveaway.
Right. Well, and I can tell you who's going to win it already. We didn't get a lot of participation in the drawing, so hey, it's Gemma. I do believe that you just won a free copy of Mutant Year Zero.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Right, congratulations, Gemma. Enjoy it. Trust me, we'll be doing probably a deep dive and a playtest here.
We try to make sure that we do each time we do a specific dive into a game, we make sure that we do a playtest of it. We're a little bit behind right now, so it might be a little bit before we get to the Mutant Year Zero. Along with that free download that we're just get with me, Gemma, and I will get that to you. But along with that, we also are going to give you an opportunity to be a guest on the show when we run that. So you could be a guest player if you want to.
Yep. Though piggybacking off of what Greg has mentioned about deep dives, for those who are viewing in, we will actually be doing a episode tonight as well of the update log, our usual time, 8 p.m. EST. We'll be doing a deep dive into the alien system. You've seen us play a couple episodes of that system already. Saw our characters kind of do their thing, but now we're going to go into the mechanical pieces, the stressed panic die and the character creation process and things like that.
How much we love it or hate it?
I mean,
you got child class. Come on, what's not to love about that?
Yeah,
Alien has been a lot of fun so far. So I mean, really gotta.
It has been.
So
I don't know about what y'all talking about. My pilot is flawless.
Flawless.
I think he's failed only like once. I think.
Usually those people are like right up there, close to first to die. I think.
Probably.
It only failed once, but that's only failed once so far.
No, it's a lot of fun, and we will be doing that deep dive this evening, like Rob was talking about. And please do join us tomorrow for our live play. Live play at 8 o'clock.
That's right. Yeah.
We are doing a short campaign for Alien, so we're like testing those boundaries that we were talking about, taking a more or less one-shot system and making it into several shots all in one.
It's gonna be a bloody end.
Maybe you could join it or something.
Welcome in, Brody.
Welcome in, Brody. For how many? I wonder how many people are going to survive.
What I do want to be respectful of Thomas's time. We got about 6 minutes here, so any last minute things, and then we can let Thomas get back to doing what he does best,
creating awesome games.
And we definitely would love to have you on the show again in the future, Thomas. I throw that out there because I figure I might as well just put it out now. And
oh yeah, definitely.
And all right. You're
Yeah,
welcome,
that was
Jim.
easier than I thought.
You know,
but yeah,
the best players in this community are really, really awesome people. And that's what I have found with the groups that we've worked with. And I've worked with everybody, but I mean, we've definitely, the groups that we've been able to connect with so far, such as Free League, Artel Sorian, you know, some of the other folks, Mediphius, I haven't really gotten real engaged with them, but they are really nice people as well. But you know, you guys are great. You really are. And Free League, I'm very, very impressed with because, you know, so
Thank
far, the experience of working with you guys in you know, limited capacity, but the experience of working with you guys and the feedback that we've gotten from the community that works more directly with you has just been, you know, wow, really, you're great. We love you.
That's great to hear. That's fantastic. Thank you.
You are welcome.
but I believe we're at time. So again, thank you guys for joining us for this special episode of the Update Log. Again, we sat down with Thomas Harenstam, the one of the 4 co-founders of FreeLeague Press and one of the major designers of a number of different games on their catalog, which I highly recommend going to check out. But join us again in a couple of hours as we come back for a deep dive in the Alien system, which was one of the ones you worked on. So you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you back here at 8 o'clock tonight.
And thank you very much, Thomas, for being here.
Yes.
And
Thank you. Great to be on.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Same. Thank you.
All right, guys. With that, we'll close out for this evening. Thank you very much for being here, our wonderful audience. And please do join us this evening at 8 o'clock, our normal time for the update log. We are going to do a deep dive into the Alien game system, probably talk through character creation, some of the elements that we've talked about today, such as the stress and panic system, which is exciting stuff. And then tomorrow at 8 p.m., we will have our 3rd episode of our Alien stream game live play. Hopefully I get to kill somebody tomorrow, but we'll see. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes.
All right, bye-bye, guys.